I'd like to convene the regular meeting of the Peabody City Council for Thursday evening, April 18th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. Please join me in a moment of silence. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. This meeting is being televised live on Cable Access Channel 9 and is being taped by Peabody Access TV and is also being recorded by the City Council stenographer.
President, if I may,
Councilor Gould.
I'd like to acknowledge a colleague from Salem, City Council, Ward 7 City Councilor Steve Dibble is here to learn some best practices. Steve, you're not in the right building if you're going to learn best practices from the Peabody City Council, but thank you for coming. Council President, too, right, Steve? Yes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much to Council President Dibble and Councilor Gould. We're going to move to item 4A on the agenda. Councilor Sasslaw.
Yes, Council President. If no, under suspension of rules, motion received late communication. It's on everyone's desk. This is a request from the petitioner to postpone the hearing to we're gonna go with at this point May 9th. So move.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Item 4B. The clerk will read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, April 18, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the Wiggin Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Improtex Auto Inc., care of Elchin Nadirov, DBA Prestige Auto Sales, 288 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting the transfer of a Class II motor vehicle license at said 288 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. Peabody City Council, Councilor John G. Turco, City Council President.
Gentlemen, could you please state your name and address for the record and give us a synopsis of what you'd like to do?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Alex Rudy, and we're trying to transfer the license.
Sir, you just have to press it one time.
One for all.
Sorry for that. I'm Alex Rudy, and I'm trying to transfer the license to Elchin Nadirov at 288 Newbury Street in Peabody. It's Class II used motor vehicle license.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience here to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody in the audience here to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, Councilor Sasslaw.
Thank you, Council President. So just to give a little history, Prestige Automotive is the car dealership on the Route 1 South. It is basically located right after where Circuit City used to be. Now I mean it's called Harbor Freight Tools, and it basically has part of the property is in Danvers and part of it is in Peabody. So we started this process on one of the councilors, Councilor Cheresh, just asked me about it, and I just want to kind of refresh everyone's memory for councilors who were here and were not here. A few years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Anthony Alba who came, and he had a location down the mall and opened up the property. And when he came before us, he made a lot of promises. And to me, I take a little bit of special, this piece of property has a little bit of special significance to me because it's the first piece of property when you come into Peabody. So it's, you know, it's somewhat know, there's a certain piece of property in Peabody that, I don't want to say it's a prominent piece of property, but, you know, it's the first piece of property that you come into Peabody. So to me, I like to make sure that it has a good-looking appearance, and I feel that that should be incumbent upon the owner. So Mr. Alba came and he asked for a transfer of license. He actually, we had some problems for about a year. He came for the transfer. And the gentleman who's before us tonight stood before us and said that he understood the issues, and he was going to take over and once again keep the property in decent shape. You know, I'm not so sure you did a great job, to be quite frank with you. But more importantly, and lucky for you, Elchin has really reached out to me over the past probably 6 months. And even though you still owned it and operated it, you don't own the property, issues as far as taking off an old gas tank, getting rid of tires that have been there, keeping, I want to say the grass cut because really it's the winter time. But as far as just trying to listen to what I'm talking about as far as why it's important that I feel this piece of property at least have some semblance of cleanliness and orderliness, he has taken it to heart and he's done it. And I do have some questions, but I appreciate what you've done, Elchin. And I'd like to, if this goes through, I'd like you to understand going forward why I have been such a proponent and spent time with you and to try and explain to you. As I said, it's not just me, it's my other 10 colleagues here, and it's the 57,000 residents across the city that in some small way you play a part in what people see when they first come into Peabody. I did see there is one item here from the Collector's Department. There's a tax bill owed of $280.56 as of March 20th, 2019. That was for personal property taxes for fiscal year 2019. Has that been paid?
Did you pay the taxes?
You said what?
There's a note here from the Collector's Department that, this would really be for the current owner, that there's a balance due of an unpaid personal property taxes for fiscal year 2019. The amount due as of March 20th, 2019, you owe $280.56. Are you aware of that?
Mr. Saslow, I think it's triple net rent, so our landlord includes the personal property tax. I'll definitely reach out to him, and I'm sure, you know, he paid it.
So this, I will make a condition of this transfer that has to be resolved before the transfer can go through. That'll be one of the conditions of transferring.
Understood.
It. The only other question I had, I saw in your application, now I believe there still is a Prestige Auto in Malden, Massachusetts, is that correct?
It's a different entity. It's called Prestige Motors of Malden.
Okay. But enough that it can be a little bit confusing. I guess I want to ask you, Elchin, I did a quick Google search today. I saw there's a Prestige in Peabody, Prestige in Malden, some form of Prestige. The beginning, the first word is Prestige. In Salem, there's a Prestige Automart in Westport, Mass. And then if I typed in www.prestigeauto.com, I think I came up with it was out of the state. But I guess my point I'm trying to get to you at is that it can be confusing for the consumer. And, you know, I guess there's goodwill involved, but have you thought at all about, I see the corporate name is different. Have you thought at all about changing the name or for your own identity?
My company's name is Improtex Auto, so and dealership name also I will change after license to Improtex Auto, as I just make updates on the Google about like 2-3 days ago. So I'll change it all to 88 Newbury Street, Peabody, like as Improtex Auto.
Okay, so the transfer, the paperwork. So the paperwork, I see the corporate name, but you're going to change the business name, and it says right here, the business name is Prestige Auto Sales, so are you So what are you going to change the business name to?
Prestige, Improtex Auto Motors. Like as the same with corporate name.
Understood. Well, I think that's a good thing, and I think it's less confusing, and
Yes.
quite frankly, I think it gives you the opportunity to develop your own identity and establish your own
I
goodwill.
already changed the website
Okay.
and also Google. I update the Google Maps on the Google Maps business name.
At this point, I'm going to allow my colleagues to ask any questions, and I'll come back.
Any questions? Council Charest.
Thank you. And again, I understand that dealership is in half in Peabody and Danvers, but the office is in Peabody, that's why you need a license in Peabody. Has there been any issues with the parking lot now in Danvers? Do you have to make any transition and go for any changes there?
I don't think we have any issues.
We have like overnight parking from Denver's for 15 vehicles.
And that's what you're going to continue to go with this transfer?
Yes, we will do. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Along the lines of Councilor Charis' question, could you just hit the button on your microphone there?
It's on. Yeah.
Just press the button one time
Press
to
the
shut it
button.
off.
Thank you. So you don't need a license in Danvers? You don't have a separate license in Danvers? Now you hit the button again. There you go.
We have a permit for the sign because it's in on the Denver side, and the inspector came to inspect the signage and overnight parking. Yeah, because there is no structure on the lot, so they don't require licensing.
But there is a limitation on the number of cars. So if it's 15 plus the 12 that are on this license is the total that are allowed on the combined property. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's accurate, and plot plan saying 27.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no further questions, Council Sasslaw.
Thank you, Council President. As far as the map that's here in front of us, I'm not quite sure I agree with, spot number 9, as you know, that's really a tough spot because if it's a large vehicle, it's going to block it. So, and then the 2 visitor spots, I'm not going to pick this apart too much because, to be quite frankly, one of my goals is to come back and to make all the dealerships, used car lots in Peabody, have a plot plan that matches up and has numbered spacing. That's something that is on my agenda, and the reason for that is, quite frankly, we have some businesses that have used car lots and they do auto repair, and for enforcement, we're not helping out the police department when they go out and they visit that. So I'm going to go back and see that, but I'm going to ask you that you don't use space number 9. If you want to put it in the visitor space, you can. I mean, quite frankly, one of those visitor spaces you have marked as a handicap, which it was kind of done half right. I mean, you put a stencil down there, and I don't even know why you did that, but you chose to do that. But we're going to probably come back and revisit this, but I'd ask you to space number 9 not be used. And also, I would ask, the one other issue that we had some problems with is I would ask for the record special permit that you never put a rope across the curb cut. I know you were having problems with the neighbors cutting through from the mobile home park. They would cut through your lot to go back out to Circuit City to go back out to 114, to not have to go down Route 1 and turn around. But I want to clearly say for the record, you cannot put a cord up and block that. If that's a problem, you can reach out to me, another city official, and via police force, we will deal with that issue, but you're not to block that off. Also, Elchin, there was a problem with having the snowplow removal done in a sufficient time manner. You had problems this year. When it snows, you gotta plow the parking lot and you gotta open that up. And it can't be open for a Ford Fiesta. It can be open, it's gotta be wide. And I saw that, and you know what I'm talking about, and you're nodding. So, I'm saying it for the record, you're nodding, you're agreeing to it, and I expect you to live up to that. You're the new owner, you know my concerns, we're addressing them publicly, and I'm not seeing any problems here. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the transfer.
Counsel, could you close the public hearing?
Yes, apologize. Motion to close the public hearing?
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer of the car license on the application from Improtex Auto Company, Inc., care of Elchin Nadarov, DBA wrote it down, hang on. DBA Improtex Auto Motors, 288 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. Request a transfer of a Class 2 motor vehicle license at said 288 Newbury Street with the following conditions. That the outstanding tax bill of $280.56 be paid, and that you have to, you need to bring that down and show proof of receipt to City Clerk Spanos, number one. Number two, that there will be no parking in spot number 9, so indicated on the plot plan. Number 3, that there'll be no rope, chain, or any other impediment that will not allow access to Route 1 on the curb cut. So move.
On the motion, Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Sasslaw, just for clarification, if the condition is no parking in space 9, does that take the number of vehicles from 12 to 11?
No, because he could put one with the 2 visitor spots there, which aren't necessarily required. He could put a vehicle there. I just didn't want to see anything in that spot located as number 9, that's all.
Mr. President, through you to Councilor Sasslaw, I'm right there with you in terms of getting better definition on parking for these establishments that have multiple endeavors, repairs, sale. I've had a lot of frustration with that same issue myself. So typically what I like to see is not only the visitor spot, but the employee spots and everything. Is it realistic to just leave one spot for employees and visitors, or is it your expectation they'll use the Danvers property for those purposes?
That's exactly where I was going. There is enough space on the Danvers side for employee parking and for visitor parking or customer parking, correct.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Belleville.
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasslaw,
Yes.
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Item number 6, motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Mitsoulas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under suspension of the rules, I'd like to go to item 8F, motion to receive.
All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to have Public Works install a throughway sign at Conley Terrace. It was a request from the neighborhood. People are going in there and not realizing there's not an exit. They just go in and they're kind of attracting a lot of vehicles there. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I'm a little uncomfortable here when I really shouldn't be, but I had an experience this week, and I just thought I would mention it. I had a dear friend who is in Mass General, and he was a veteran, and we've been friends since childhood, and he's having a hard time. And I wanted to go and see him. He's in his 5th week of chemo right now, and I couldn't get in and out of Boston, and I went and saw the veterans agent, which I didn't realize was available to me. I went and saw Steve Patton, and I asked him what he had available to me, and he said, I will take you into Boston. I want to tell you, he took me in Saturday night at 5 o'clock. I stayed over at the hospital. He picked me up on Sunday at 12 o'clock. And I am so thankful that we have someone that could do something like that for my friend, the agent. I mean, for my friend, the veteran. And also, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Patton went in the hospital with me, and he honored my friend who's a veteran, and he just made him feel so good. And it made me so proud that we had a veteran a veteran agent like that, and I didn't want to embarrass him by mentioning this. I mean, he went and honored my friend, and he just made my friend feel terrific, made me feel good too. And I just say publicly, thank you very much, and I'm glad we have a veterans agent here in Peabody who's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Melville.
President? I'm sorry, Mr. President. On
Councilor Gould.
Councilor Mitsoulas's motion. Councilor, I think it'd be a wonderful thing if maybe we pen a letter, or do you not want to?
Oh, I would love that.
If we put together a letter, Tim, as a thank you to Captain Patton through Councilor Mitsoulas for what he did to help out. And Mr. Lucia is actually a former Peabody resident.
Right. Yeah. You know, thank you, Tom, for bringing that up. I really didn't want to bring up his name, and the reason for that is I didn't want to embarrass him in any way. But let me tell you something about this kid. He's one of the few Green Beret Special Forces soldiers we had in the Vietnam War, and he's really, really quite a guy. And you could write a book on his life. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to embarrass him and say anything out of line.
Tim,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind, could you put together something?
Yeah, Tim, would you do that?
Thank you.
On the
Thank-
co-motion from Councilor Gould and
Thank you.
Councilor Matsoulis. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive and forward to the city solicitor item 8A, forward to the city solicitor for review and an opinion on how to proceed with regards to the impact on any state regulatory requirements and how this particular item would impact the host agreement. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8B, correspondence from Sharon Cameron of the Health Department regarding aggregate industries and report. That'll be discussed at next week's Committee of the Whole. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And under suspension of the rules, move to accept item 8I and refer that to the Legal Affairs Committee. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions tonight. Thanks.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, make a co-motion with Councilor Gravel, if that's acceptable to him, on item 7A and receive and refer to the Committee on Finance. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, make a co-motion with Councilor Turco to receive item 8C. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8D and refer to executive session. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, co-motion with Councilor Turco to receive item 8G and refer to legal affairs. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to adopt item 10D as advertised. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to adopt item 10E as advertised. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Council Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bringing up, when Councilor Mitsoulas brought up the veterans agent, Mr. Patton, that's a very touching story. And I spoke with him over Student Government Day at some length, and I was really impressed with the amount of work that he has been doing and his office has been doing. So I'm glad that you kind of opened up with such a, as I said, touching story. I know that's your friend, and for Steve to do those type of things, and we don't hear about it. So I'm glad that you shared that, because when he was speaking with me over Student Government Day, I had no idea all the work that is being accomplished. A lot of things are being accomplished. They've done hundreds of applications for services and assistance for veterans that wasn't done in the past. So along those lines, I want to make a co-motion with Councilor Melville to invite the Veterans Agent Steve Patton to come to a Human Services Committee so that we can be apprised of all the work that office is doing, some irons that they have in the fire, and in order for us the council, to offer support in getting those things done and more things done for our veterans. In particular, as we know, they do have a van. I believe that they got through a grant, and they use that to drive the veterans into Boston. And there are a lot of volunteers that when the van is not available, the volunteers are taking their own vehicles and driving veterans into Boston. And they're using their own gas, again, when the van is not available. So, is it time that we take a look at getting another van? Do we talk to Mr. Patton about how they can maybe put in for the mileage and things like that? Because it is expanding with their hard work so much and so fast that we need to offer them the support to continue to do what they're doing. And in addition, I know that they've picked up a lot of volunteers to come into City Hall. And I don't know if anyone's been in the Veterans Agent office recently, but it's tiny, and I think they've outgrown it. So I'd also like to take a look, if we could, with the mayor and other city officials to find them a more suitable office space that meets their needs, because right now it doesn't. They've completely outgrown that little spot, and they deserve a little bit more room in order to remain organized and continue the things that they're doing. So a co-motion with Councilor Melville, because I know that you had been very proactive in the tax work off program that they have to drive the veterans into town, into Boston, and to their services, and for them to take their own cars, and they're kind of losing that work write-off tax write-off is kind of discouraging. So I wanted to, maybe we could talk about those things. So if you had any remarks, Councilor Melville?
On the motion, Council Melville?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd be happy to be part of that co-motion. There is quite a lot going on with our veterans agent and his staff, and they're doing great things. Actually, I was down there today, and they're talking about the parade and a number of other things that are going on. I don't think people always realize that there are state regulations that they have to follow. So not only are they following up on the resources that the state requires, that they're doing going the extra mile here in Peabody. I think it's something we can all be proud of. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have our veteran agent up here to talk about. We had talked about when we approved this back about 6 or 7 months ago, him come back, give us a report on how it was going. I think it's absolutely appropriate, and then also maybe discussing what other assets that they could use going forward. So I absolutely approve and think it's a great idea. Thank you.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Sasslaw.
Thank you, Council President. On the suspension rules, motion to receive item 8H and set up a special permit hearing on May 23rd. So move.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
On the suspension rules, motion to receive item 8J and all papers being in order, approve transfer.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
On the suspension rules, motion to receive item 9D and set up a special permit hearing on May 23rd, 2019.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I'd like to make a motion. Before I make the motion, this is for Lakeland Park Drive, which is Lakeland Park Drive, for those of you who are not familiar with that. It's the road that heads down to the Federal Express building, Wood Trucking. They're having an issue. What's happening is that as the Reds is filling up and the gas station that has overnight truckers parking there legally, as those areas are being successful in filling up, they're having a problem with trucks parking on Lakeland Park Drive, and that's prohibiting the businesses that are on Lakeland Park Drive from getting their deliveries. So I'd like to make a motion that no parking signs be placed around Lakeland Park Drive on both sides of the road, advertise for acceptance. So move.
Council, on that motion, do we need to add that to city ordinance? If you don't mind if I defer to the clerk on the section.
Yeah, I believe Councilor Sasslaw made the motion to advertise the ordinance.
Correct, to
Out of
advertise
the
the ordinance. yes.
motion, yeah.
Motion.
Okay, I just didn't know if this specific ordinance should have been meant. My apologies. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Further motions, thank you.
Council Charest.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to ask DPW to restripe the hash marks on Lowell Street to east going west by Forest Street to show a single line. Cars were doubling up again, so that line was made last year. It was very successful. It usually comes from about Jennifer Lane down to Forest Street. So move.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I would also like to have that same line made on west going east at the intersection of Endicott, King, and Lowell. I understand the construction's going on now, so I'd like to just get it in motion. So when hopefully in a month or so, when that construction is over, they can line that to also a single line, and up until the proper spacing for them to go to the left for a left-hand turn. So move.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And under the suspension of rules, I'd like to move to accept item 10A for adoption.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I'd also like to,
On that motion, Council Gravel, is there an obligation to read the entire bond order? You are correct. On the motion by Councilor Charest, roll call vote. Yes, and if those didn't hear it, the motion is to adopt as advertised.
Councilors Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Melville,
yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Sasla,
Yes?
Charist,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
And I'd also
Councilor
just like to say a happy Easter, happy Passover, happy and safe holiday the next couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. You confused me a little bit. That's Council Gravel typically receives all those financial orders. Threw me off my game a bit. Councilor Gould
No motions, Mr. President.
and Councilor Gravel.
It's okay, Ed.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm just trying to learn from the best.
That's good. That's good. Under suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive item 8E and refer it to the Charter Review Committee, to the Committee of the Whole under the auspice of the Charter Review Committee. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And we'll schedule a meeting, Tim and Allison. Allison actually is the head of the subcommittee, so. And also, threw me off my game too, Ed.
I'm sorry.
There we go. On the suspension of the rules, I would like to receive and approve as advertised and adopt as advertised the bond order for the water treatment plant improvements in the amount of $28,612,500. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Oh, that's a roll call vote again. Roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes?
Charis.
Yes.
Gould, Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
Again, on the suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive item 8C and adopt as advertised a bond order for the water transmission. That's what I said. 10C? No. 10C, sorry. I'm wearing my new contacts tonight.
You're looking very sharp there.
Thank you, thank you. And adopt the bond order for the water treatment, the water transmission main and pump station improvements in the amount of $9,519,770. So moved.
On the motion, roll call vote.
Councilors Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes?
Charis. Gould,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent.
And finally, I would like to make a motion requesting the Community Development Authority through its director, Kurt Bellavance, provide the City Council with a list of city-owned properties for disposition. I'd like on that list to know the property location, the time that it was acquired, and its current status in terms of disposition. I'll make the motion. I just want to make a comment on it.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Sasslaw, can you hit your mic? Thank you.
So the reason I'm asking for that is we have acquired properties through the years that were acquired with certain expectations of what would be done with them. And I guess we're all learning that sometimes what we want and what happens is not in sync. We own a church, we own a mansion, we own a group of buildings out in front that was supposed to be a park.
We own a building down on Endicott Street that we acquired from the light plant many years ago, and actually took it in as the school administration building, and it's been vacant and is basically falling down. We own some land down on Walnut Street that we purchased, which was for one day potentially being a parking garage. I just want to know what's being done at this point in time, because when we acquired those, we had an expectation that certain things would happen, and they're not happening. And I think it's important that the ones that we can move, we move and do something with them, because all of them are in a horrible state of disrepair. And, you know, we don't want to be the city that advocates that its property owners, commercial or otherwise, keep and maintain their properties properly, and then not act as we say, and have those properties sitting there degrading themselves over the years. So that's the reason for the motion. So I'd like to have that list as soon as possible, and have the opportunity to discuss with the community development director, the mayor, and anybody else that's involved, what we have, what's its status, and what can we do about it to expedite the status of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. While you have the floor, can you take us to items 9A, B, and C?
I sure can. Item 9A, taxi limousine driver's license, Scott M. Middleton, license 1. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? To vote.
9B, junk dealer's license, 2019 renewal, Charland Appliance Center, 15 Spring Street, Long's Jewelers Limited, 35 Cross Street. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? To vote.
Item 9C, utility contractor's license, CJ Doherty, Inc., 41 Locust Street, Medford. Move to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And thank you, Councilor. I had one motion, and if there's no objection, I wanted to ask Mr. Gingrich to appear before the Finance Committee at the next scheduled meeting to actually update this council on the progress of the budget, the upcoming budget. I know it's not typical, but I think, in my opinion, and you may differ, I think this council should have a little bit more involvement in this budget prior to 3 weeks before budget time, and we get your school and city budgets, and it's our names that are on it. So I really prefer that we do have. I do think there's some brilliant people on this council, and we could make some decisions to help along the way that could help the city, and I'd really like to have more involvement. So if nobody minds, I'd like to refer Mr. Gingrich to come to the next Finance Committee meeting. On the motion, Council Gould.
On the motion, after you,
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tim, could you please schedule an industrial community development meeting, a couple of them maybe, sometime in May? I know there's still some open items that we have to address.
Yes.
You and I can work.
I'll go
You
over
and I
dates
can work
with you,
that
yeah.
out. Okay.
Yeah, we have, yep.
Thank
I'll
you.
go over the
And
calendar with you.
Mr. President, there are a number of runners from Peabody that raised significant amount of money, over $100,000. It's estimated that the Peabody runners that ran in the marathon. So I'd just like a hats off to them, and good job on the charity end of things. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. And on that, Councilor Gould, congratulations to your son, Michael, and Councilor Gravel, congratulations to your son-in-law, Dan. And Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to receive the late communication from the Charter Review Committee meeting minutes of March 26th and refer to the Committee of the Whole. So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
President, one last, when you have a
Councilor
chance.
McGinn, I'm sorry, Councilor McGinn.
I was going to move to adjourn, so we'll...
Councilor Gould.
I'd just like to invite the general public and the council to the seventh annual Peabody Education Foundation Legacy Award right here in the Wiggin On Thursday night, May 2nd, we have a great slate of new inductees. Mr. Jack Marshall from the high school, Mr. Jody Pedro, who was in middle school, Mr. Ernie Osborne, who was principal of the Brown School, Carol Isles, who was or still is a teacher at the St. John's Elementary School, and Miss Maria Ferry, who is the vocational director of Peabody High School. So tickets are available online, peabodyeducationfoundation.org. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry to be delinquent on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And Councilman McGinn, back to you.
Move to adjourn, Mr. President.
All in favor? Any opposed? Have a good evening and a happy Easter to everybody.